walk us through the interpretation channel and make sure I get that up. Can you all see the screen okay with the PowerPoint presentation? Great.
Yes. Also, Maricela Telle said that she didn't get the link to get in the meeting.
Maricela, you said?
Yes.
I can try to email her right now. As Domingo is sharing the directions here. Let me try to email her 1 second. Domingo, I'll go ahead and turn it to you.
Gracias, Monique. Thank you, Monique. I'm going
Thank you.
to repeat these instructions in Spanish as well. I'll start with English. Voy a repetir estas instrucciones en español también. Voy a comenzar por inglés. For all of you who are joining us tonight using your tablet or your smartphone, if you can locate your menu button with the 3 dots on the top of your screen, you can click there and then from there select language interpretation. And then from the options below there, you can select English or Spanish. In this case, you will select English if English is your main language. For all those who are joining us through their computer, you can locate the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen with the form of a globe. You can click there, and from there you can select English or Spanish. I'm going to provide these instructions now in Spanish. Buenas noches para todas las personas que nos están acompañando a través de su tableta o smartphone o teléfono inteligente. Favor de localizar el menú con los 3 puntos que se encuentran en la parte superior de su pantalla. Pueden presionar ese botón y de ahí seleccionar Language Interpretation o interpretación del lenguaje. De ahí aparecen las opciones de inglés o español. En este caso, ustedes seleccionarían el español si el español es su lenguaje de preferencia. Para las personas que nos acompañan a través de su computadora, pueden localizar el icono de interpretación o interpretation en la parte inferior de su pantalla en forma de globo. Al hacer clic ahí, pueden seleccionar inglés o español. En este caso sería español. So with that, I will continue in English. It is a pleasure being here with you again in this first meeting of 2024. Happy New Year, everybody. We have some exciting news to share and a really good meeting. And so with that, I will turn it back over to Monique. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight.
Thank you. Sorry, I was multitasking here a bit. I'm also going to put, I just sent an email to Maricela, the Zoom link, but I'm also going to put in the chat box here the Zoom registration link if you want to grab that and also send that over as well. So as Domingo mentioned, we have a really exciting meeting planned today. Oh, there she is. Let me go ahead and let her in 1 second. We do have an update for you regarding the SERP. We'll share that in just a moment. We're also going to take some time today to reflect upon the SERP or the Community Mission Reduction Program process that we all engaged in the past year plus, or actually 2 years. And we'll start to identify some priorities we want to set in terms of moving towards implementation. We're also going to have a presentation from Sandag about the San Diego and Imperial Counties Sustainable Freight Implementation Strategy, which actually is connected to many of the strategies in the SERP that you all help co-develop. So we'll get to learn more about that later this evening. But before we jump into these items in the agenda, I want to share some good news with you all. So was it gosh, it feels like a long time ago, but it wasn't, but it was last week, right, Domingo?
Last Thursday.
Last Thursday. Feels like a long time ago, but last Thursday, the Air Pollution Control District Board reviewed the Community Mission Reduction Program that you all helped co-develop and approved the plan to move forward to the California Air Resources Board for review and approval. So it passed a major milestone last Thursday, which was really wonderful. And the board members We're really impressed by the strategies and actions that you all help co-developed, and are really eager and supportive of its implementation. More than anything, the board wants to see all the ideas that you've all have come up with. They want to see them become a reality. And so we had a lot of great support from the board, and was very, like I said, impressed and supportive of all the work, and appreciative as well of all the work that you all have done. And Domingo, do you want to add anything else to that in terms of what the board shared as well?
Yes, thank you, Monique. Definitely. I think uh, I think it was very clear that they were very appreciative of all the work that went behind developing the SERP, and all the time and effort that the community put into this effort. One thing another thing that was I guess approved as part of this item for the board was to allow us to seek additional funding to continue to support implementation of the SERP. There's it's a very ambitious plan. It's a very extensive plan. And so right now at this moment, we don't have all of the resources to fully implement it, to 100%. So that's very important that we now have also the authority to seek that additional funding, and also to advocate in favor of legislation that will support a lot of the measures that are included in the SERP. So it was a full packet that was presented for the board for them to authorize, that are all in support of reducing emissions at the border community. So very excited about this milestone. And now our next step is, like Monique said, presenting it to the California Air Resources Board, which that will likely take place. We will submit the plan to them in the coming weeks, and it will go to their board most likely in March of this year. So thank you, everybody. Congratulations. And again, very appreciative of all the time and effort that everybody has put into this, and your partnership with us.
Yeah, thank you, Domingo, and congratulations, everyone. I wanted to take a moment to share with you where you can find the SERP on the website. What we were able to do as well, and I could send this out in an email as well, but we were able to put the SERP document that you all reviewed. We were able to put that in a nicer format with pictures and have it be a little bit more engaging. So I want to share with you all where you can find that on our website. So I'm going to share my screen here. If you go to our website, whoops. There is a specific link for the international border community where you can click and see the meetings that we have. But we also have an icon here that you can click here to review reports. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat box for you all. You can review the community air monitoring plan, which you all worked closely with Kevin and David, and I think Rebecca's here as well. So that's where you can find these documents here. But here's where you can find the community emission reduction plan that you all helped work on. And let me go ahead and paste that here. And special thanks to Victoria for helping add this all to the website. And Victoria is here as well tonight. But if you want to view the SERP in English, you can click English. You just go up to the front here. So you can see that there's pictures. It's a slightly different layout as well. So you'll get to, some of you will get to see yourselves in these images as well. And so it provides a nice layout. We have the same thing available in Spanish as well. So everything that is laid out in the English version is also in Spanish as well. You can see here. And special thanks to Victoria for getting this all laid out in Spanish, which I know that it was a heavy lift to do all this graphic design work as well. One of the things that I hope to work on by next time we meet is to have a condensed or shortened version that's easy to read, and you could read in no more than five minutes. So we're going to have hopefully a shorter version, similar to how we had the camp in a shorter version as well for folks to be able to read, because this document itself is 99 pages, and that's a bit much to read, but we'll have it in a shorter version in English and Spanish, hopefully by the next time we meet as well. So I just wanted to share where you can find these documents, and so that if you're interested in kind of taking a look at what it looks like in its final version, you can certainly click on those links to do so as well. Yeah, thanks, Domingo. I appreciate it. What we'd love to do now is with you all is take a moment to reflect with you all about the process in co-developing the SERP itself. Take a moment to reflect on things that worked well, things that we might want to kind of continue to implement as in the way we are together, in the way that we're collectively doing things as we move towards implementation. But also reflect on some things that could have been done differently, right? In the planning process, maybe some things that may have made you feel frustrated in the process as well, that we want to be mindful of as well moving forward. And then lastly, what are potentially some hopes that you have as we move forward in the implementation phase as well? As Domingo mentioned, the California Air Resources Board, they will still need to review and approve, but there's no reason that we foresee that they wouldn't do so. So we certainly want to start getting a little bit of a head start in terms of implementation. And so would love to hear from folks, and you certainly don't need to answer every single one of these questions you see on the screen. But if there's a question that is inspiring you, a question that you'd like to answer, or maybe there's something you'd like to share as you're reflecting about the process that we've collectively went through that maybe is not part of one of these questions, we certainly welcome that as well. And so certainly want to give everyone a chance to speak. I might be calling on some people if folks are a little bit quiet. But yeah, I'd love to hear from folks as we think about and reflect upon the planning process that we all experienced in the past year and a half. And we're a small enough group, I'll probably just call on folks too, and feel free to pass if you don't have anything specifically to share. But I'll go ahead and start calling on folks just for the sake of time, if that's okay. I see Jenny. Jenny, you came off of the screen. Would you like to share just general reflections, or if they fit into any one of these here?
I just wanted to say that I thought it was good to have a brainstorming that we did to have all kinds of different ideas. Because when I first was thinking about what we could do different, I was thinking it would be nice to know how much everything cost. Because when you're planning stuff, it'd be nice to know if this is an idea that's pretty inexpensive and probably more doable than something that's super expensive. So that in a way it'd be nice to know that, but then I was thinking after I thought that maybe it's better to just brainstorm the way we did, get all kinds of ideas, and then later you can sit down and sift through them, because I think we came up with a lot of really good and creative ideas that way, rather than trying to just go from cost from the beginning. So I think it's really good to have it very open at the beginning. I think that worked really well.
Yeah, so also maybe what I'm hearing, Jenny, is that like our hopes kind of moving forward is to start doing kind of the cost estimates of all these things. so that we can have more of an understanding of how we're going to accomplish those things and what we need to accomplish those things as well.
Yeah, so cost, and I think also the level of who's doing it, you know, is it the state of California? Is it a local municipality? But I think it's really important to have ambitious goals too, because we can change big things, you know, if we have the will, like how planning is done or something, you know. So I think it's good to think about all the different levels, and I hope that we can think more clearly about how to actually do stuff now and what's the low-hanging fruit, I guess.
Most definitely. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Jenny. Let's see here. Oops, I have a person in the waiting room. Let me let them in. Um, yeah, Wendy, would you like to share?
Buenas tardes. Yo quisiera compartir, nomás que no sé si me oyen porque está un poquito lento mi internet. ¿Sí me escuchan?
Yes, sí.
Ah, ok. Ok. Este, una de las cosas que me gustó de este plan de la contaminación del aire es que tomaron en cuenta a la comunidad, a las personas que voy a hablar un poquito despacio porque sé que está traduciendo. Este, a las personas que realmente estamos afectadas por el problema de la contaminación del aire.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Wendy. Is there anything like in the
Y
process?
otra cosita que
Oh,
también quiero
sí.
compartir y se me hace muy importante que tomaran nuestra opinión y que nosotros también pudiéramos, que contaran con nuestros votos, con nuestra voz y voto para que este plan se llevara a cabo.
Yeah. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Wendy, for sharing. Um, let's see.
Gracias.
Thank you. Let's go to Nicolas.
Hi everyone, can you hear me, Monique?
Yes.
Um, I think one of the things that I really appreciated was um being able to go to different places within the 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 oh my God, I'm struggling. Around the international border region, I really appreciated the meeting at the truck stop and being able to see um, the charging stations that they had there. Um, I also appreciated how the the committee was able to pivot when like from like developing the SERP to also pivoting and advocating itself against the ACF challenge. And so I don't know, I think moving forward, like um I guess continuing to get CSC members out into the community to see things being implemented would be good. And also continuing with like being kind of nimble and being able to like uh support or challenge things in the legislator um as they come up. I think that'd be good.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Nicolas. So yeah, so that flexibility, right? When those needs come up. And again, it was consistent, right, with the vision that this group had, even though the vision was being developed, right, as we were also pivoting, but making sure that when we pivot, that we're like grounded in kind of that collective vision, right, and those collective actions and strategies. Thanks for sharing that, Nicolas. Let's see. Trinidad, would you like to share? All All right, she may be offline for a moment. What about Maricela? Maricela, is there anything you'd like to share? All right, we could circle back. What about Shelby? Shelby, is there anything? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so we're just asking folks what they'd like to share in terms of their reflections. And so we have these prompts here on the
Yep.
screen, but you can also go outside of these prompts as well.
Yeah. You know, I think it was really helpful near the end when we had the one-on-one time. Might have done that a little bit earlier, just because also specifically as even right now, like sometimes I get a little pulled away with family time. And it's more helpful in my role where I can have some dedicated time during the day to have one-on-one time and bring back some of the reflections to my team and then come back. So maybe next time I would have done some of that one-on-one reflection earlier, and that would have been more helpful, but we got to it, and that was really helpful. And, you know, I just definitely commend y'all's team for taking that extra time with the city to be able to go through and highlight where our role was relevant, and really appreciate y'all taking that extra, making that extra effort with us. So thanks again for doing that. And again, like highlighting where our role was relevant was really important, and making sure that the partnerships were highlighted and where we could also leverage more of those, and bring in more value to the SERP in general, because I think there was also more that we could bring to the table than we could do, you know, initially just at first glance. So it was good to hear from the community and to say like what we could do that didn't, you know, always come to light right away. And so that was an opportunity for the city to pull a little bit more, to carry a little bit more weight wherever we could.
Yeah, I appreciate that feedback, Shelby, and completely agree. I feel like we were like really able to pick up momentum when we had those one-on-ones towards the end. And definitely what I'm hearing is the hope moving forward, particularly for those that are going to be holding different pieces of the implementation, that one-on-one conversations continue, like outside of just kind of this space. So thinking about, well, how are we also connecting with Caltrans and Sandag in these one-on-ones to kind of move pieces, even outside of this meeting, and be strategic about kind of our collective time in this space as well. So yeah.
Probably because we, you know, we represent just one voice of a lot of different connecting points. And so we can be that web that I can't always represent right now in this space, but that, you know, sometimes I can amplify it more respectfully in a, you know, in a different way or more thoughtfully when we have that opportunity outside of the meeting too. So I appreciate y'all's extra effort in being able to do that sometimes. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Shelby. Let's go to Elsa. Elsa, would you like to share anything?
Sí, buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
A mí me ha gustado mucho también, me uno en lo que estaba diciendo Wendy, que se ha tomado en cuenta a la comunidad, a las personas que estamos con esa problemática de la contaminación. Creo que es muy importante saber cuál es la forma de vida que están ellos o que estamos llevando y de qué manera nos podemos apoyar y ayudar junto con las organizaciones y con la comunidad para poder dar una solución y resolver esta problemática que estamos viviendo. Gracias.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elsa, for sharing. Incredibly important, right? You know, that this plan reflect
Aquí,
community's priorities. Yeah, Marisela.
Marisela, sí. Sí, es que no podía poner mi micrófono. Yo quiero compartirles. Buenas tardes primero a todos. Durante este proceso ha habido muchísimo avance y organización. Se le ha dado forma a este proyecto que me parece ha sido no tan fácil porque lo han estado llevando en los 2 idiomas, que eso lo aprecio muchísimo. También aprecio muchísimo el que nos hayan tomado en cuenta a las personas de la comunidad, porque nosotros realmente podemos compartir lo que realmente sucede aquí, tanto en los malos olores como en la contaminación debido a que tenemos aquí la frontera, el flujo de automóviles que es constante y que es muchísimos autobuses, camiones. Entonces, el que ustedes nos estén tomando en cuenta y que nos hemos dado cuenta que ustedes han hecho anotaciones de nuestros comentarios, yo lo aprecio muchísimo y les agradezco mucho que hayan tomado en cuenta mi ciudad San Isidro. Muchísimas gracias. Estoy muy agradecida con todos ustedes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marisela, and thank you all for being here and you know every month, right, and helping inform and being part of that process, because without you, we wouldn't have been able to have the type of plan that we have, right? That is really reflective of what you all shared. So thank you all for participating and being here every month. I'm gonna go to Zach. Love to hear your reflections as well. Again, feel free to respond to any of these questions on the board or you know, add your own as well.
Hi, Monique, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just downloaded the Zoom app for my phone, so testing it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't want to be repetitive with a lot of the things that were already expressed, but I guess something else to highlight that I thought was great was the way you facilitated these meetings. Like, I think not to speak for everyone, but definitely felt seen and heard throughout the process. That was really key. Maybe to add something that next time we could try to do a little bit differently is get more participation from the Mexican side. Just like the problem is binational, the solutions are going to have to be binational as well. So, yeah, I think those are the only 2 things I'd mention on top of what's already been said.
Yeah, Zach, I appreciate that. And I've been thinking about and would love Carb to chime in too, but thinking about, you know, there's an opportunity, right? To expand membership of the SERP. Is there an opportunity that we can maybe get some community members, right? In Tijuana, also participate in this as well. Since the majority of our meetings are virtual, and then we could think about if need be hybrid for in person or what have you. But I think that's a really critical point, and thinking about that moving forward. Certainly, our government agency partners in Tijuana are aware, and we'll be working with them. But how do we also bring community voices from the Tijuana side as well? I know that Magdalena, who works with a group in Tijuana, has participated in a few of these meetings and has shaped the SERP in some critical ways that I could specifically point to. But how do we make that a more kind of formal part of this space? So I think you're absolutely right. Alejandro, yeah.
Yeah, hi everybody. I was a little late, so I'm not sure if someone has mentioned that, but I think something that I would personally like to see moving forward is just projects being implemented that align with the SERP, right? because I think you and I were talking, Monique, about how like this was a great process, but at the end of the day, as when we're gonna start noticing change in the pollution in the communities is when we see projects and policies that are being implemented and reducing the pollution in the community.
Absolutely. And Alejandro, since you're off mute, is there anything else you'd like to share in terms of your reflection, in terms of the process itself? Again, you don't have to specifically answer the questions on the screen, but if they're helpful, yeah, feel free to use that to as a prompt.
Yeah, I think personally I was really happy with the process. I think especially after you and Domingo got on board, it felt just so much more smooth in a sense. And I think we were able to learn from other communities like the port side and other communities in the state to kind of fast track us into creating this document, right, and this program. So I think I'm personally, proud of the result and just seeing how the community really showed up. I know that I think I agree with Stan that or was it Stan that mentioned about the collaboration from the Mexican side? I understand that there's limitations because of jurisdiction and stuff. That's perhaps something that just being more innovative on how to get collaboration from that side would have maybe been better. I know the timing was also kind of rushed for us to create a whole binational collaboration. But I think I'm really happy with the both the process and the result of the program. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alejandro. Yeah, definitely agree with all that's been shared. What about Diane?
Hey, Monique, can you hear me?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, great. I know last time I tried to talk, you couldn't, so I want to make sure. Yeah, I really appreciated how the community continues to show up as part of this process and how there's such active participants and willing to take the time out of their day, not only to help themselves, but the whole community. So it's inspiring. My hopes moving forward is to continue to follow through with the commitments that were made by Caltrans and the SERP, and I'm excited to see what form they will take place once they're implemented. And I'd also like to, I agree with Zach's comments that you've done a great job on keeping the SERP moving forward, and it's been a very positive experience. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. Let's go to Mariela.
Hi, good night, everybody. I kind of want to echo also what others have said. I think your leadership and Domingo's leadership have been amazing guiding the group through the development of such an important document. It was a huge undertaking, so my hats off to you guys for that, and also to the community, like others said, for showing up every meeting with open minds and ready to tackle this project. And so it's been great.
Yeah,
And
thanks,
thank you for the
Mariela.
opportunity that you gave Sandak to collaborate and help as much as we were able to with the development of it.
Yeah, thank you, Mariela, and special thanks to you and Zach, and then also Diane and Jose, in terms of a lot of the strategies you all helped to identify in terms that were in other planning documents that have been approved, that this group showed support and increases the likelihood of those things moving forward, right? And so just appreciate all the work you've all done on the back end to have a pretty strong SERP. I'm going to turn it over to some folks from CARB that I see here. So I see Andrea, Melinda, Juan Ramon, Cynthia as well. May have missed somebody from CARB here, but see if anyone from the CARB side of things. I know that many of you have been active participants in these meetings since the beginning, and love to kind of hear your thoughts on just how the process was and what are your hopes moving forward as well. Melinda.
Hey there. Sorry I can't be on camera. But one of the things that I just really want to share is that this community has been so inspirational in terms of the collaboration and just the level of detail into making sure that everybody's voice is heard. And so I really, as a manager of the AB 617 program in the Southern California area, I really kind of tout this community as one to look at. It's just very inspiring, the amount of enthusiasm, the amount of dedication that this community has really have come together to put together such a wonderful, inclusive, informed document. So I'll just say that I look forward to all the work that's ahead. But I know that the amount of work and effort that has been already put into this document is so meaningful. So just really looking forward to all the other benefits that we'll see moving forward, and just really and thankful to be able to just observe and participate in this process. So thank you. Oh, I think you're on mute, Monique.
Thank you. Thank you, Melinda. Just want to check and see if anyone else from CARB would like to share.
Hi, everyone. This is Andrea. I just wanted to say that I really thought the additional SERP meetings, those workshops that you held to go over the strategies, was amazing. I think that really helped everyone understand what they could do with the development of the SERP. And just echoing what Melinda said, I'm really looking forward to seeing the implementation of the SERP. And if you need anything, you can always contact us at CARB if you have any questions or concerns.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. I know we have Cynthia and Juan Ramon. Would either of you like to share?
Hey, this is Juan Ramon. Oh, sorry,
go ahead, Juan.
You go
No,
for it.
go ahead,
You
Juan.
got it, Cynthia.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm really sorry for the background noise, but I think I've only really been with this community since I started with CARB, so like roughly like 7 months, and I just am really impressed by all of the great insights and just like contributions for all of the community members. I know that as I work on different platforms and develop different tools for the program, I'm definitely listening intensively to everyone's feedback, but also the insights, and see what y'all want to be incorporated in various tools for the IBCSC program. So I'm just always listening and always eager to hear everyone's like feedback and insights, because definitely something I do want to emphasize in all of the tools that we develop from the CAP program. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Juan Ramon.
Hey, this is Juan Ramon. I just wanted to give a quick comment, appreciating the responsiveness and allowing us to participate in the Camp and CERP review. Appreciate that we were able to work together on that one.
Awesome. Thanks, Juan Ramon. I know, Maritza, you've just joined us. And yeah, good afternoon. We're just taking a moment right now to reflect on the process in developing the SERP. And so asking folks, what could have maybe perhaps been done differently? Were there any moments that maybe you felt frustrated in the process? Are there things that we've done that you'd like to ensure that continues? And then lastly, what are your hopes also moving forward? Maritza, if you feel like you're in a good place and or would like to share, would love to hear if you have any kind of reflections on how the process was for you. Also, I can give you some time to settle in. I know that you just logged on right now. As I do that, I'm actually gonna, I accidentally skipped Tim, but Tim, you've been to several of these meetings for sure. Just want to see if you wanted to share anything in terms of your reflections in this space.
I think just one thing to echo, really really strong SERP, a lot of good actions, and I think that having the like the actions selected, they seem like really appropriate, they seem achievable, and it's also like consistent with the other public agencies. So I think it's set up well for success. And then also I think one thing that was done really well is just putting it all together so quickly. Not to say that it was hasty, but I think it was like a really effective job of getting folks to kind of rally around these ideas. So want to congratulate the team on that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tim. And yeah, I know, Tim, you also, I saw your edits and just kind of feedback in the strategies document. And so appreciate all the kind of the time you put, and effort you put into that. I think we were able to integrate most, if not everything, that you and your team added. So thank you for that time. I know that we also have here tonight several folks from the Air Pollution Control District as well, who are present at all, if not all, almost every single one of these meetings. So we have Victoria on the line, David, Sophie, Christine, just kind of looking here, Rebecca as well, and Domingo. Just want to see if anyone on the APCD side of things would like to share any reflections.
Thanks, Monique. Something that I really wanted to highlight was just, and I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting, just how much I appreciate the community's engagement, because that's really what's central to this process, is that, all of these different actions and all of the priorities that we're going to work on together are coming and being informed from the community. And then also just, really appreciative of our partner agencies and their engagement in this process as well. I know that we're really relying on a lot of other agencies for a number of actions in the SERP that are completely outside of APCD's jurisdiction, and it was very I was very pleased to see the level of collaboration and engagement and support from all of our partner agencies. So really kudos to all of them as well. Thank you all for your participation, for your collaboration, and for your dedication to this process. This is truly a team effort, and so just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, thank you, Domingo, and I definitely echo your sentiment as well. Want to see if anyone on the monitoring side of things. We've got David, Sophie, whoops, Rebecca, and Christine. David.
Yeah, hi Monique, hi everybody. I think really just from the monitoring team's perspective, really echoing.
David, you're really low. I'm not sure if it's the headset.
No, it's because I didn't have the headset mic down.
Okay.
From the monitoring team's perspective, I think we really just want to echo what Domingo has spoke about. This is a big lift for the community. We're really appreciative of everybody's time and commitment of coming and thinking and coming up with the different strategies, as well as the partner agencies. I mean, as Domingo mentioned, there's a lot of things that are gonna needs to be done with those partner agencies and not just APCD as a government agency working on the solutions of this. So thankful that everybody is greasing those wheels and trying to move towards a much better, healthy environment down in the border area.
Yeah, thanks so much, David, for sharing. Anybody else on the monitoring side of the house? Okay. Anyone who didn't get a chance to share, or maybe shared and then would like to share something else? Anything else folks would like to add? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the chat box the Jamboard that Domingo has been writing notes. If there's anything else that comes to mind for you all, feel free to add it to this Jamboard, because what we'd like to do is really take note of what your reflections are in terms of, as we move forward, how can we be mindful of these things, right, that you've all shared in terms of what could be done differently, what you hope happens moving forward in terms of what you'd like us to do the same as well. So please, if anything comes to mind that is not on the board yet, feel free to add it to the board as well, because we want to really be able to use this as our compass in some way, moving forward. And we certainly want to periodically take some time to reflect on the process. So this is certainly not the only time reflection will happen. Let's say 6 months into implementation, we want to take some time to reflect again. How is implementation going? What should we be doing differently? And building that in a formal way into our time together, so that we're always growing and learning together, and have an opportunity, right, to speak truthfully, right, to one another. So if things need to be corrected, how do we work together to make corrections? If things are working well, how do we ensure that we continue those things, moving forward as well? So again, feel free to add more to this. It'll serve as our compass as we move forward, and as we move forward into implementation as well. So before I transition to the next kind of section of our conversation today, just want to double check and see if there's anything else anybody else would like to share in terms of a reflection. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone who has a hand raised or is off mute. So I'll go ahead and transition. So before I hand it over to Mariela, and I think also maybe Tim might be presenting this evening, I wanted to talk about and start our conversation a little bit about there are a lot of different SERP strategies and actions. There are 5 different priority areas, right, around passenger vehicles, heavy duty trucks, cross-border. There's other sources as well, and community care. And in those 5 categories, we have overall 34 strategies and 128 actions, right? And so it may feel a bit overwhelming, right, to think about, well, where do we get started, right? We all had collectively a lot of great ideas, a lot of important ideas in order to address these 5 categories, these 5 community priority areas in a holistic and comprehensive manner. And thinking about, well, where do we get started? And so I wanted to share some ideas with you all. This by no means means that this is what we are going to get started with, but I wanted to, what I did is I started to look at the 128 actions and look at the 34, overarching strategies, and try to identify, the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, right? The things that are in some way we can probably start working on now, based upon the capacity that we have, based upon different things that may be going on around us, and taking advantage of those opportunities. And so I looked at opportunities in 3 major ways. Again, we don't have to come into any consensus this evening, but I just wanted to plant the seed for that. And then when we get together in February in person, we can start having more of a strategic session around, moving forward with certain priorities. But opportunities that I looked at were what's currently moving, and I'll describe what that is when we get to that section. items that require or items that in some way are tied to incentive funding. APCD does have some incentive funds that we can start applying to some of these things in the short term or in the immediate term. And also, what are some of the short-term actions that have been identified in the SERP that potentially we can get some movement on now and start working on now? So again, this is just my really, really high level assessment of looking at the 128 actions and the 34 overarching kind of strategies that I saw that could potentially we can get started on and start working towards relatively soon, based upon existing capacity again, and based upon different windows of opportunity all around us. But that's not to say if you all have other ideas of what that can be, or other priority areas that you all want to make sure we're collectively, or maybe even a subcommittee, is intentionally focusing in on now, we are so open to that. But this is just kind of my first attempt and kind of seeing what we can start tackling now, and doing this in a bite-size way. So I'm going to start with, let's see here. I'm going to start with what's currently moving. So what I mean by that is that in some way, there's already conversations taking place regarding this particular SERP strategy. And there's an opportunity for the International Border Community Steering Committee to plug in and play an active and important role in helping shape the direction that these conversations are going in. So the first is strategy 5, heavy duty vehicle strategy 5, develop and advocate for rules or other strategies that reduce emissions from indirect sources, including heavy-duty vehicles operating in Otay Mesa and in San Isidro. Right now, there is a working group that's looking at doing just this, in developing potentially a rule or other strategies to address indirect sources. So address pollution that is that warehouses, for example, attract. And we know, right, there's a ton of warehouses in Otay Mesa, which is one of the reasons why this became an opportunity, right, in the SERP to address. And so right now, APCD is convening a working group to help inform what a potential rule can look like around this, or what potential strategies can look like around this. So there's an opportunity to have this group plug into that working group, or better yet, have APCD staff come here and host workshops here with you all to be part of that conversation and shaping what that is. And so it's a unique circumstance that one of the potential rule development action items that you all have is already in progress, but it be really important for folks to have this group get involved in helping shape what that can and should look like. And the second is conduct monitoring along the Tijuana River and River Valley to understand the health impacts and mitigation efforts. That is starting already. There have been a couple of monitors that have been deployed in the Tijuana Valley area, and there will be more. A group of us took a tour out at the wastewater treatment site run by the International Water, what was it? International Boundary Water Commission, Domingo? Not sure if you're still here. I think you are.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry,
Sorry.
I was struggling to get to my mute button.
No, sorry about that. And I was just testing if you're still here, just kidding. So that's already in progress. I think where there's an opportunity, since that data is going to start to be collected, is can we seek a partnership maybe with SDSU, public health, or some other research group to start looking at that data and its connection to public health as well. So that is something that could be potentially possible, given that there's already movement towards implementing those monitoring stations, specifically looking at the odor and the odor causing emissions in the Tijuana River Valley area. So those are two things that are currently moving that this group can plug into in some way. So I want to pause there before I get to the next section that talks about short-term actions, and just to hear folks' thoughts on those two items as potentially something that this group can potentially prioritize and immediately plug into in some way. Is there an interest in plugging into these two things that are moving forward?
Sorry, Monica, not understanding the question. I don't know why.
Yeah, no. I'm just trying to get a sense of if folks would be interested, given that these two things have unique windows of opportunity to get engaged in, if folks would be interested in potentially prioritizing these two things, and certainly not only these two things, but prioritizing these two things as something that IBCSC can take on in the next 0 to 6 months.
Okay, so not individually involved in, but they can. Okay, got it.
Yeah, yeah, not individually involved, but more as a collective.
I think both of them are really important.
Yeah.
I think we should. This is Jenny Quintana, sorry.
Nicolas, thank you, Jenny.
Yeah, I agree with Jenny. Specifically on the indirect source warehouse item. I think a lot of I've participated in a couple of the working group meetings, and I think they're heavily attended by folks that don't live in San Isidro and Otay Mesa. And so I think having the perspective of community members that live along the 905 freeway is a perspective that is super valuable and is missing. And so I think, yeah, it's a great idea, not only to encourage folks to participate in the warehouse working group meetings, but also maybe even carving out a specific meeting at the CSC. I mean, this is the venue, right? So yeah, I think it's a great idea, Monique.
Yeah. Thanks, Nicolas. Anyone not thinking it's like maybe the right time to focus on these or prioritize this at this time? Yeah. And also what's shared here too, like there's going to be an opportunity the next time we get together to further have this priorities conversation, but I just wanted to kind of plant the seed for that conversation based upon my just really high level overview of those strategies. So for the sake of time, I'm going to go to the second one here. Okay, so this one is around short-term opportunities. The first is a plan to integrate urban greening and prioritize locations near schools, parks, senior centers, healthcare facilities, and daycares, and etc. The reason why I put this as a potential priority to focus on right now for two main reasons. One is that right now the city of San Diego is looking to plant trees throughout the city in what they call communities of concern, but San Isidro actually qualifies as one of the areas they are to plant trees. There are certainly a greater need for trees and green spaces than the city has trees. And so what would be important would be to have this group and also the larger San Isidro community as well help inform where these trees get planted and prioritized, right? And you will have a good sense of where that should be. And then also help inform and work with the city's arborists to help inform to maybe plant trees that that do good with, with water, right? But also are known to be good barriers to block air pollution or even take air pollution out of the air as well. So there's an opportunity right now, given that the city is in the process of rolling out that project. A chunk of that funding, just to provide a little bit of history, and maybe Domingo can help me out here a little bit, but I believe a chunk of that funding is from a settlement agreement with the Air District itself. And Domingo, would you be able to help provide some deeper context and how that's connected to APCD?
Sure. Well, unfortunately, not too much.
Okay.
I don't have all the information right now, but that is certainly an opportunity. And I also wanted to highlight that program as well, because an opportunity for this community is also to inform what kind of projects APCD can propose as part of these settlement programs. So it would be great for us as an organization and for the different communities to have already like a database of, hey, these are all of different projects that support the different communities that could potentially go into the settlement program. So if APCD were to find itself in that situation again, where we have to negotiate a settlement with a particular entity, we already have a list of programs that the community would support. So just wanted to highlight that piece.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of a two-part thing, right? So one is it could be part of a list that this group develops, right? If for some reason someone is out of attainment and they have to go to court and do a settlement because they were out of attainment for some reason, air quality attainment, APCD can say, okay, use the money for the settlement to go towards a community project that the community has already identified. And so that's actually what happened with the city of San Diego. They were out of compliance. I believe one of their buildings downtown was out of compliance in terms of asbestos. And so part of that settlement agreement was to plant trees, and I think there's like over $4 million going towards tree planting, and the community of San Isidro is one of the communities that's going to happen in. So there's an opportunity to help let the city's arborists know where those trees should be prioritized and all. And I know that the city's surveyed San Isidro to identify potential locations, but again, there's more locations and there probably are trees and resources. So given that the city or this group can help maybe inform that process. The other thing too, in regards to that, is I think that there's some changes happening in terms of what APCD incentive funding received by the state of California can be used towards. I think that's also going to include in the next round urban greening opportunities. So we'll need to look more closely into that, but there might be an opportunity to look at incentive funding to be used for urban greening projects as well. So we'd want to look more into that, but that's another potential opportunity that we can start to work on as well. The second thing listed here is support education to businesses and truck drivers. Another relevant support services to assist with applying for incentives, and generally the transition of zero emission heavy duty vehicles. There are already existing incentive funds at APCD that could be used for these types of transition to cleaner vehicles and cleaner technologies. So there is an opportunity to support in having APCD do more education to folks who could potentially benefit from utilizing these programs as well to transition. So that's another potential opportunity here as well. But I want to pause there and want to hear folks' thoughts in terms of the urban greening, but then also in terms of education to different businesses as well. Are folks already in communication with the city regarding urban greening projects? Just out of curiosity. Shelby, I'm wondering if you have maybe more information on the status of that project.
I just made a note to follow up with that team.
Cool, awesome.
Report back.
Yeah, and I think it would be, and I'd love to hear other folks' thoughts, but I think it'd be really awesome if there could be maybe like a interactive participatory presentation to get the community involved in kind of helping inform that process as well. So yeah, thank you, Shelby.
Yeah, would that be of interest to bring in the arborist team and hear a little bit more about what's going on there?
What do folks think?
Hi, this is Jenny Quintana. I think that'd be really interesting. I know that we, along with David Flores from Casa Familiar, had long ago looked into trees and the Caltrans right-of-ways, but it's so complicated. Like there's only certain trees they were allowed to plant, and there's all these safety considerations. And so there's a lot of ins and outs to urban greening that I really wanted to know more, because I think it's a really exciting way to go to help clean the air, especially for like kids' playgrounds and stuff like that.
And I know I've heard Wendy talk about urban greening, and Trinidad as well, and Elsa. Yeah, I'd love to hear folks' thoughts, and Maritza too. I've heard Maritza talk a bit about urban greening. Well, all right, for the sake of time, I'm going to go to the last slide here. So I want to make sure that Sandag has enough time to present. Again, we'll talk about these in more detail next time we meet, but so here there's a bunch of different opportunities in terms of incentive funding, reducing air pollution exposure at schools in a wide variety of ways. Again, using urban greening as one of those opportunities. Even having potentially like a flag program. So when it's a bad air quality day, you fly, let's say, a yellow or an orange or a red flag, and that indicates to everyone, maybe this is a day that if you're sensitive to that, it's an indoor day or what have you. Reduce indoor residential exposure to air pollution. So this would be a similar program to what's happening at Portside in terms of providing air purifiers for the home, particularly for folks who are near these air pollution sites and are sensitive to these pollutants, to help clean the air indoors. So there's an opportunity there, using some funding, some incentive funding or AB 617 incentive funding that APCD receives. This strategy 10, community strategy 10, is the strategy that actually Domingo was talking about a bit earlier, is looking for coming up with the list of community projects that if there is a settlement and mitigation needs to happen, APCD can direct that funding towards those types of community projects. So there's another opportunity that we can do and continue to develop that list on an ongoing basis, but that we could do actually quite quickly. One, looking at what's in the SERP already, but also adding to that list as well. Next is supporting and fund incentive programs to reduce emissions from passenger vehicles, so cars. There is some incentive funding for that, but how can we maybe direct our team to get more information out there to folks for that transition? And then lastly, it's kind of similar to the one I mentioned previously, is support education to businesses. Actually, I think it's the same one. I accidentally put it twice, but support education to businesses and truck drivers to assist with applying for incentive funding opportunities as well. So these are some items in the incentive funding category that some actions or some steps can be made towards actually implementation at this point. So again, they're just opportunities for us to think about. As mentioned, these items here are just kind of my general assessment, given kind of what's happening here locally, what incentives type programs that we currently have incentive funds for that we can start putting money towards, and also thinking about some of these short-term goals that there's synergy with things that might be happening at the city or at APCD or elsewhere, that we could start immediately working towards and have within the first year of implementation some really good potentially some good success stories to build from as well. And I certainly want to make sure that there's a lot of strategies in the SERP and a lot of actions in the SERP. And I wanted to kind of ground us a little bit so that we don't feel so overwhelmed by the magnitude, right, that's there. But that we can actually start taking steps towards these tangible things. So with that, our next meeting will be able to share, or I'll share more about that after Sandag presents, but we'll be able to share more and have an opportunity to kind of have small group conversations to start to prioritize what we'll be focusing on in the next 0 to 6 months, so that we can start having some tangible success within our first year that we can continue to build off of as well. But before I transition to Sandag, are there any questions or comments anybody like to share? I want to call on Alejandro, because Alejandro, I know that last Thursday we kind of checked in a little bit after the meeting one-on-one, and that this was kind of one of the things we discussed in terms of, what is the low-hanging fruit, and love to kind of hear your thoughts in terms of what I shared this evening, but also if there's other things that are maybe coming to mind that should also be included in this current list.
Yeah, I think for at least for this ones that we last spoke about is very revolving around schools. I think the school district is obviously a very vital role playing in this one. We have done some greening efforts with them before. I think we planted like maybe close to 100 trees in 5 different schools, so it's not unheard of. I think it's just gonna require some coordination and collaboration with the school district, especially since they're gonna be the ones upkeeping and doing the maintenance on the trees. But I think, yeah, like whatever strategies we can implement right off the bat, we should try to do so. I think it would probably motivate the rest of the group and really make us just kind of tackle on the rest of the program if within the first few months we're able to implement some of those smaller projects.
Yeah, thanks, Alejandro. Any other comments or questions from anyone on the committee? All right. Like I said, it's just the beginning of this conversation, and I hope by the end of our next meeting we have some kind of tangible next steps and consensus around potential priorities. I'll take a look at the SERP actions again. There might be other things that kind of stand out to me, but feel free to take a look at them too. If there's things that are standing out to you that could be kind of like within the next 6 months to a year that we can collectively start working on as well. Also, take a look at more the longer term goals. There's things that we might need to do right now to set up the success of those longer term goals. So take a look at that and be ready to have that conversation the next time we meet. So right now I'm actually going to turn it over to the folks at Sandag who are going to do a presentation, and then we'll be able to have a discussion about the San Diego and Imperial County Sustainable Freight Implementation Strategy. So I'm going to turn it over to Mariela, and I'm just going to make sure that you are able to share your screen. And actually, I'm going to turn it over to Tim too, because I saw you come off
is gonna
screen.
share. Yeah,
Great.
he's gonna share the presentation. And I apologize for not going on camera, but I'm having some bandwidth issues with my connection tonight. Once again, hello. I'm Mariela Rodriguez, Senior Regional Planner with the Goods Movement team in the Planning Department at Sandag. And today I'm here with Tim Garrett to provide an update on the San Diego and Imperial County's Sustainable Freight Implementation Strategies. Next slide, please. So we know that freight is an essential part in our regional economy and plays a significant role in our daily lives. Excuse me. We also know that communities near and around freight facilities bear disproportionate burden when it comes to air quality and pollution. So to address some of those issues and meet state regulations, SANDAG, the Imperial County Transportation Commission, and Caltrans have been developing the Sustainable Freight Strategy for almost 2 years now. This plan intends to create a more sustainable supply chain network through regional freight projects and policies that reduce emissions while fostering trade and to meet state climate, air, and quality health goals. The objectives are to develop and strengthen partnerships between public agencies and the private sector, excuse me, address environmental concerns from freight impacts, pilot innovative technologies, identify state, federal, and additional funding sources for implementation of these strategies. And we also intend to address workforce development gaps by the implementation of these new technologies. Next slide, please. So through this project, SANDAG and its partner agencies hope to align the implementation strategies with the goals of improving overall freight sustainability and policies that reduce emissions. So this overlaps with many of the goals that were set in the International Border Community SERP. Next slide, please. I'm sorry. One of the overarching goals, as I mentioned, is to reduce emissions from freight. So in many ways, the project aligns with the strategies to reduce residential exposure to air pollution and exposure from sensitive receptors. Next slide. Also, one goal from the SERP that we anticipate being supported through this project includes supporting the deployment of electric truck infrastructure, dedicated truck routes, and low emission zones, which Tim will cover in detail later in this presentation. Next slide. This project supports implementing programs that support operational efficiency at the ports of entry. And SANDAG, in partnership with Caltrans, is developing and deploying the regional border management system as part of the Otay Mesa Port of Entry project. This includes a border wait time system. Next slide, please. Through this project, we also anticipate supporting the implementation of some SERP strategies by deploying the system that I just mentioned and promoting charging and parking staging areas, as well as piloting wireless inductive charging. Next slide, please. Supporting regional efforts to identify sites for charging infrastructure for zero-emission heavy-duty trucks operating in the Otay Mesa region. Next slide. As well as supporting and collaborating in research on actions that reduce emissions from heavy-duty vehicles in the border region. Next slide. So to date, the team has accomplished a lot. The project has completed the existing conditions assessment, innovative strategies development and screening, public engagement, development of evaluation criteria, and then evaluation of projects, programs, and policies to prepare an implementation strategy. And so we have condensed our list of nearly 200 strategies that are in this plan into 11 key strategies, some of which we'll be discussing tonight. And we will be looking forward to hear your feedback and comments on those strategies, as well as the workforce development toolkit, which will be covered towards the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. We will now dive into the key strategies, which stem from research, analysis, and community and stakeholder engagement. And with that, and now I'm gonna hand it over to Tim to talk about the key strategies.
Great, thank you, Mariela. So let's start with the projects, and then we'll break, have a little short break to see if there's any questions or comments, have any feedback if you'd like to do that, Monique. And that way, just to break it up, since there's a lot of stuff to talk about here. Okay, so this first project I want to talk about is zero emission truck charging and parking and staging areas. I expect that many of these concepts are familiar to folks who have been participating in the SERP development, but really the charging infrastructure is really necessary to support these new vehicles. And then there's an opportunity to co-locate parking and staging areas. Parking and staging obviously being really important for driver safety. The operators, as well as staging when they're not quite ready to make a pickup or a delivery, but they need to wait a little bit of time and maybe there's amenities nearby. And so the idea with this concept for projects is new facilities that would likely be publicly owned. And so there's a lot of benefits. And so reducing emissions, because these are zero emission vehicles, incentivizing their adoption, which, removing any barriers that we can, providing those resting and waiting areas, and then reducing truck traffic by giving these operators designated places to charge, park, and stage their vehicles. Let's see, next slide, there we go. But with that, all those benefits, there's obviously lots of considerations and challenges, and one of the biggest ones to overcome is the complex power needs. So, electric vehicle charging infrastructure for passenger vehicles is one thing, but imagining hundreds and thousands of trucks, that's a lot of extra power, and so it's a really big challenge for public agencies to plan for and provide all of that supply for all the electric infrastructure. And so there's a huge cost, and it's challenging to forecast the demand, when it's going to be needed, when it's going to be consumed by operators. And so that's a big challenge, the timing there. And then this being, pretty new infrastructure, it's not quite obvious how the operations and maintenance are going to go, especially for public agencies that don't necessarily have a whole lot of familiarity with managing this type of infrastructure from a long-term perspective. And there's multi-stakeholder coordination, which is going to be a theme you'll see in a lot of these strategies. It's just a challenge to overcome. Okay, this next project idea is wireless inductive charging, especially for trucks in queue. And so this is infrastructure that would be installed in the pavement and it would allow basically provide that electric charging for batteries wirelessly. So it would be installed in the pavement. There would be a receiver on the truck underneath, and so the electricity would be able to flow, and so that would reduce the needed charging time as well as potentially the needed battery size. So that could make it more feasible to transition some of these trucks faster. So that's obviously great. It could reduce the stopping time, the charging time, improve reliability, reducing emissions, and as well decreasing truck traffic on in certain routes, because the drivers would be incentivized to follow the routes where they could charge up. And so this could be especially useful in areas where there's queuing. So one of the areas where that might be is near ports of entry, near ports, places where their trucks are going to be going pretty frequently, and if they have to wait a long time. But this is a new technology, and so there's a lot of uncertainty about how effective it will be, what the long-term operational challenges might be, how to maintain it over time, access to utilities and other things within the streets. That's a big challenge. And so getting to get all of the stakeholders to cooperate on those things and have a plan for implementation would be a big challenge, as well as standardizing some of this infrastructure that isn't very standard at this point. The next project concept is truck-only lanes, and these could provide a great freight network efficiency as well as safety benefits, lessening the wear and tear on general purpose lanes, because trucks would be more focused. They would generally be confined, or they would be more likely to travel in these truck-only lanes, and so there wouldn't be as much wear and tear for other road users. And separating those road users could also provide a lot of safety benefits. You're not combining, large trucks that are, potentially pretty dangerous with other road users, and so this could provide benefits for safety, reducing emissions, and improving fuel efficiency. Some of the considerations with this are right-of-way acquisition, potentially, depends on how it's implemented. One of these questions, if these truck-only lanes were implemented, they exist in other parts of the region. We don't really have any here yet. In our region is, would these be expansions? Would it be converting existing lanes? How would you create these? And, is there enough public support to support this type of project? How would it be enforced? Would it be truck only and no one else? Or would trucks be allowed to go there, but other vehicles would be allowed in? And then so, like I said, operations and maintenance is going to be a big challenge here as well, for another reason that I'll talk about in a few minutes, with the potentially overweight vehicles with these heavier zero emission technologies. So with that, that's the projects. Take a break here. We'll move on to policies and programs in a second, but I want to pause and ask if there's any comments or questions, if folks have any questions about some of these projects, what they would entail, and if they want to add any feedback. So I will pause there and see if there's any hands or comments in the chat. Great, I see Nick.
Hey, Tim, thanks for the presentation. I just have like a real quick, just clarifying question. So are these, as part of this plan, are these projects like, I guess I'm specifically interested in some of the charging and staging items for the heavy duty trucks. Is there going to be like conversations in this plan about where these charging and staging sites will be located, or is it talking about these projects kind of in concept?
It's I'd say more on the conceptual side. We do have, so the projects that I'm talking about right now, we've developed fact sheets for them. And so I think there's about 2 to 3 pages for each one of these concepts. And it's a document that was just posted on our website. And so we can link to that. So each one of these has suggested locations. So more conceptual. So it's kind of, industrial areas, border region, near ports of entry, things like that, or certain types of contexts that would be more appropriate. There's other ongoing efforts, especially related to the zero emission truck charging and parking facilities. We have an ongoing feasibility study that Sandag is collaborating with Caltrans to analyze sites. So there's other work that's going on that's more specific. This is the conceptual portion, and in doing so, we're able to kind of see how these different concepts rank against each other. Hope that helps.
Yep, thank you.
Monique?
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm particularly interested in the concepts of like in-road charging, and am wondering if, one, I know that there's a lot of uncertainties with the technology and all, but I'm wondering like if the paper at all, or if there's already discussion of like how can the region get to that, because I think that would be like where, you know, the check-in point at Otay Mesa where the trucks are slowly going through, like that would just be like the most opportune place for that in that area. And so I'm just wondering, like, how far in the future is that? Are we talking 5 years? Are we talking 10 years? Where's the kind of the conversation here locally?
If I may, I would say that we are in the initial phase of actually trying to pilot this program or this project because it hasn't been really implemented in many places. We know of one case study, one case that is in Europe, and also in the Midwest, I believe, Tim, if I'm not wrong. But our climate team at Sandag is pursuing a pilot in San Diego. But like I said, is still developing technology that has not been proven. So I think the first baby step of implementing or piloting this type of technology will be to do it in a closed environment where, you know, there's controlled type of traffic and there are no multi-users, bikes, pedestrians, etc. And it's kind of like a closed environment for a certain type of use and see where that goes. So in my mind, I see it as as a project that it will be implemented in the medium term. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I'll definitely agree with everything Mariela said. What's really interesting is there is a lot of funding interest from state and federal agencies that are trying to push some of these new technologies. So, you know, not big sums of money available, but lots of little amounts of money. And so I think there are opportunities out there. And so Sandag's been looking at those to see if we can be competitive. And so, yeah, there's potential for sure. I saw a comment from Jenny, great approaches in the chat, so appreciate that. Not seeing any other hands at the moment, so I'll go on to the next section, and then we'll have another break in a few minutes to see if there's more comments or questions. Okay, so this next one is a program. So this would be a program led by a public agency. And so it would be support for private truck parking site development. So the one I mentioned earlier, very similar. The one I mentioned earlier was kind of more focused on like a public administration perspective. This would be more led by the private side, private developers, but it would be providing some sort of support, incentive, something like that to provide more privately owned and operated truck parking sites. And so something to go forward. There we go. And so that provides opportunity for a little bit more diversification, as well as some of these sites might be a little bit more feasible, especially in high demand areas. You know, high demand areas like border region, especially. I would expect is, you know, there's probably a good economic case for that. So the economic development, as well as some of, if these are new facilities, they would be providing amenities, which are really important for these operators. So that would be showers, food, dining areas, lighting, and security. And so that would be great. And like I said, it's really important for driver health and safety, and would reduce unauthorized truck parking, because the drivers, they would opt for these private sites that they could be off street, they could be safe, they could have access to amenities, and they would not be worried about their safety or worried about getting a citation, things like that. Of course, the funding and approvals might be especially challenging, since we're talking not just about publicly administered sites here, but private sites, and what's the appropriate channel for a public agency to support this type of activity. And recognizing also that local jurisdiction support is really important here. This would be need to be implemented in close collaboration with local jurisdictions like cities and counties that have the land use authority. Another challenge is assessing the current parking dynamics and ensuring the long-term viability and safety of these sites, making sure that if they're implemented, that they're going to have a good plan long-term for maintaining those amenities in good condition. It also might be difficult in areas not supported by market. So there might be a public policy objective to provide these truck parking sites in certain areas, but maybe it doesn't make sense for the private sector to do it. So this type of strategy might not be appropriate in all locations. So the next one is policy overweight truck route planning. And so this has been a really commonly identified barrier to transitioning to zero emissions for heavy, medium, and heavy duty vehicles, especially the heavy duty vehicles. And so there's a given limit on how much a truck can weigh, and so it's about 80,000 pounds. There's a little bit of it can be different. There's a current waiver right now, but if zero emission trucks are heavier, using current technology, like a battery electric truck is heavier than a given diesel truck that would be able to carry the same amount of weight. And so since the overall weight capacity is the same, the amount of goods that can be carried per truck is reduced in a zero emission truck according to current technology. And so until battery technology improves, or policy, other types of technological advances, the amount that trucks would be able to carry would be reduced. And so potentially that increases the number of truck vehicle miles traveled, because it requires more trucks to move the same number of goods. And so we don't want to create new problems with transitioning to zero emission trucks if it results in lots of extra trucks on the road. And so that's something that we want to avoid. And so overweight truck route planning is a concept of identifying and permitting certain routes where trucks might be able to have an extra weight allowance. And so zero emission trucks would be able to travel on those roads so that there wouldn't have to be additional trucks on the road in order to carry those goods from place to place. And so this would reduce the efficiency of the system. Increase the efficiency. Some of the challenges here are the cost and safety. So wear and tear on the pavement, that's certainly an issue when you're talking about these 80,000 pound vehicles. And if you're going to increase that weight allowance, then that is likely to increase that wear and tear. And so making sure that we have a plan to address that, making sure the roads stay in good, safe condition, they don't degrade too quickly, is really important for this to be a successful policy. And then, like I mentioned earlier, with the truck only lanes, public acceptance and safety concerns are especially relevant here as well, to make sure that we're not creating new problems with safety, for example, or that this cost is the cost of the wear and tear is not supported. Next concept is a low emission zone, and this could take a couple of different forms based on policies that have been implemented in different areas of the US and internationally. So it could be a voluntary or a required system, a mandatory system, depending on the policy. But the idea is that it provides an additional incentive for zero emission adoption, and it could be incentivized through, reduced parking fees. This is more on the delivery side, thinking about deliveries in downtown areas, commercial districts. And so it could be access to the curb. It could be reduced fees for parking and things like that. But ultimately, it reduces congestion and improves health because the folks aren't being subject to emissions from these delivery trucks. But ensuring access, it's great to incentivize low emission sites, but it's also important to make sure that folks who want to participate, some of these operators have access to the vehicles and infrastructure. And so this is probably best done in combination with other policies and programs to make sure that zero emission vehicles are available. And I'll highlight one more here, and it's recommendations on land use compatibility. So this would be a policy for SANDAG or for other public agencies to really revisit and use the best available research regarding land use compatibility. So thinking here especially about industrial facilities, industrial land uses like warehouses, manufacturing, truck parking, things like that, and how close those should be to sensitive land uses, such as residential, parks, schools, daycares, things like that. And so it's one thing for existing facilities, but for especially for new facilities that would be cited, it would be probably recommended to use the best available information about what's the appropriate distances between these different land uses in order to reduce degradation of quality of life and safety and emissions and all of those things. Of course, the considerations and challenges is that this is another one of those local jurisdiction. It's land use authority, and so it's not something that the SANDAG or a regional agency would be able to take on unilaterally. It would have to be supported and really championed by local jurisdictions. And so, and that's something to consider, as well as the efficiency of freight, for example. And there's a lot of competing interests in terms of what's the best use of certain land. And so those are all things to take into consideration. And certainly a forum like this would be a good place to discuss that, the community emissions reduction plan and the associated steering committee. So with that, I'll pause. Those are the policies and programs that we have been talking about in our fact sheets. And so we have more information on each of those, like I was saying earlier, in our larger document. Want to pause and see if there's any other comments or questions before we move on to the last few, the next steps of our presentation. Yes, Monique.
I think one of the action items in the STRP talked about zero emission corridors, and thinking about kind of the last slide you discussed. And so I think maybe just thinking like strategically too, in terms of where that would be in terms of given particular land use decisions that have either led to kind of housing or even potential future housing. I'm thinking about the 905 in particular. That might be like a good place for some kind of like zero emissions corridor. But I'd also want to be really mindful too of like also not concentrating heavy duty vehicles, even if they may be electric in the future in certain corridors, because of just kind of, and this is now being kind of researched now, but in terms of the dust from the brakes, and that leading to different types of emissions as well. In terms of metals and particulate matter. So I guess just all that is just to say is like maybe thinking about existing land use in like Otay Mesa and San Isidro for those kind of zero emission corridors, but also thinking about other factors as well that might lead to unintended kind of consequences as well, even though it may be zero emissions. So Just wanted to mention that as well, as if there's an ability within this report to point out maybe other kind of health impacts and how is our planning also trying to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, that's good feedback. And I kind of want to expand a little bit on that. The land use recommendations on land use compatibility also is touching on making sure that we don't have competing or land uses that are not compatible together, like you were talking about in the Otay Mesa area, where there are heavy industrial facilities and centers for distribution, to make sure that we are not mixing probably, with the huge house development, because we know from experience in our region that that doesn't work well. So try to avoid errors of the past so that we don't repeat them.
Any other comments or questions from other folks in the group? Okay. Well, I'll move on to the next slide. Turn it back to Mariela to talk about our next component.
So over the last couple of months, we have been working with Cal State University in Long Beach, which is one of our subcontract consultants, to draft and analyze the workforce development toolkit. And as part of the labor market analysis, we looked at the skills required in current job postings and the applicants profile to identify what the gaps on those skills between the advertised job opportunities and the applicants was. So for the workforce to be skilled and be able to implement the sustainable freight strategies that we have been talking about, it is crucial to help close that gap. We also look at training programs in the region, including both counties and the greater surrounding areas in Orange County and in Baja California. We look at certificate programs, associate degrees, bachelor degrees, master degrees, and we were able to create an inventory of the different degrees that are needed and training for maintaining these technologies and implement them. So some of the recommendations for this analysis includes the development of the modular instruction, where entities could develop a modular instruction for the identified skills that instructors in the degree and training programs can plug into existing courses. And in the longer term, SANDAG or other entities around the regions could support the development of training courses that combine existing modules and create unique curriculum to provide upskill opportunities to the community. Another recommendation is the employer focus approach for entities in our region to develop and provide materials that can complement the training provided at external organizations, so employers are informed of alternative hiring approaches, such as including hiring non-traditional employees, so those that might not have the expertise or the related degree to those expertise, but can be in-house trained and be onboarded and upskilled during the onboarding period of new hiring. And lastly, the other recommendation that came out of this report is the Workforce Development Committee, and is to establish the Workforce Development Committee as a forum on relevant and emerging skills, jobs, and training between SANDAG stakeholders and experts in sustainable freight and training programs. So those are some of the recommendations that we are looking at. Next slide. So for next steps, we are finalizing the Workforce Development Toolkit, as I just mentioned, and concurrently, we are working on combining all the Presidium reports into one comprehensive report by the end of February. So this project will be wrapping up very quick. Once the final strategy is completed, we will upload the final report to the project website, and we'll share it with Monique and Domingo so that they can let the group know that is live and everybody can read the whole report. And in the future, we hope that and will appreciate the support from the steering committee as we identify potential funding sources in implementing those strategies in the form of letter of support or any other way that we might need your support with. And next slide. So that concludes our presentation. Here is my information. Jose Marquez from Caltrans, who has been part of the project development team, and Tim Garrett, was presenting today too with me, and we are happy to answer any further questions.
Looks like Monique put a SERP action in the chat that we missed. We should have included that in our presentation.
Oh yeah, good catch. Thanks, Monique.
Thank you for highlighting that for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a SERP value, like an overarching value, and glad to see that this has a a labor and economic development component as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Right.
Well, I'll turn it back to you, Monique. I don't see if there's no other comments here.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
All right, so it sounds like there's a lot of like synergy, right, between what's included in there and a lot of the strategies and values within the SERP itself. And so we'll certainly want to continue to be posted on this plan. And ideally, right, work with you all to support in whatever way necessary for implementation, whether it be supporting funding to come in to do some of these pilot programs or actually fully implement these strategies as well. So yeah, thanks for sharing with this group those different ideas.
Thank you for the time.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
absolutely. I wanted to share with folks really quickly, our next meeting is going to be in person, and I'll be working to secure a location either in San Isidro or Otay Mesa for our next meeting, and I'll send that hopefully out in the next couple weeks. And at that meeting, we'll continue our conversation regarding priorities that this group will start to focus on in terms of implementation. So what are we going to take on first? I also want to connect with you all in terms of scheduling as well. The Portside CSC group meets on a monthly basis as well, and so checking in with you all if you want to continue to meet on a monthly basis to work on implementation. I'd actually encourage that schedule. The Portside CSC also has a few different committees or subcommittees. And so as we move towards implementation, do we want to think about or consider maybe developing subcommittees? And if so, what would those subcommittees focus on as well? And again, hopefully by that end of that conversation and meeting, be able to come to consensus of what kind of our key priorities in the next like 0 to 6 months moving forward. Also during that meeting as well, I think the kind of the second part of that meeting, we want to provide an opportunity for you all to provide feedback and help shape the Air Pollution Control District strategic plan. A strategic plan is a guiding document that sets forward the vision, the goals, how the budget will be spent at APCD for the next 2 to 5 years. APCD is in a unique circumstance. It's kind of like an old new organization. APCD has been around since the 1950s, but it was originally a part of a department of the county. Now it has its separate governing board. And so it is the first time in APCD's history that they are developing a strategic plan. Previous strategic plans were covered by the County of San Diego strategic plan. And so APCD has never had its own strategic plan. So it's kind of a really interesting and important moment for the agency to have been doing this work for so long, but without a specific strategic plan. So we want to provide some space and time for you all to help shape what that is and make sure that that strategic plan is in alignment with the SERP you all help create as well, right? Those priorities are also moved forward. And lastly, in line with that conversation, it's budgeting season at APCD and for many public agencies as well. So we certainly want to kind of fold in that conversation around APCD's annual budget with the strategic plan conversation, because we think that there's going to be a lot of overlap with those two conversations. Like, yes, we can do the visioning for 2 to 5 years out, but we can also have the conversation of how we should be spending our budget for this upcoming year as well. And again, this is an important group to help inform that because there are many strategies in the SERP that you all help co-develop, or a good handful of them that are within APCD's responsibility, right, to help move forward. And we need to make sure we budget to help support those things moving forward, whether it be staff time or other types of resources as well. So we've got quite a full agenda. As always, we'll have some food, some dinner for folks as well. And so look forward to seeing you all. And again, if anything else comes up between now and then, in terms of reflections you'd like to share, feel free to reach out to myself or Domingo. We'd be happy to hear from you all. And if any other, I encourage you to take a look at the SERP documents in terms of the strategies. If there's other priorities that you'd like to help move forward and bring to the table the next time we meet, please do. What I shared tonight, again, is essentially just kind of my first look and being like, okay, what are the things that we could actually make some movement on in the next 6 months to a year? But I am open to hearing what you all think should be prioritized as well. So with that, I'm gonna wish you all good night. We're ending right on time, and again, feel free to reach out, any questions or comments. Happy to hear from you all, and thank you all, and have a great night. Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Adiós, gracias.
Thank you to everyone. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you to the speakers.